Good night. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharb. I am here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Go ahead and put your questions in the comments so that I may answer. And tonight I have a good topic. I am going to be talking about the new bill and the immigration provision in the bill. Now, I've been keeping a close eye on it to see what direction it's going in, and it has passed the Senate, and it just came out of the Judiciary Committee, which was in charge of putting the language of the immigration provisions together. And however, they're not releasing it until the Senate parliamentarian decides whether it can go through. So whether the immigration provision, hi there, Star Girl, whether the immigration provision in this bill can go through to the House and go through the rest of the legislative process. Now let's talk about what the name of the bill is, what it's all about, why is it going through this complex process of going through the Senate parliamentarian first, and what can happen. So what to do if the USPS lost your work card, and how long does it take for them to resend a new one? So unfortunately, you could be looking at weeks, and you have to get in touch with them and let them know that you never received it. Usually they will check to see if it was delivered or not, and then determine whether how you should go about replacing it, whether you have to pay again to have it replaced, or whether they'll send you a new one because the USPS was the one who lost it. So you would have to contact the USCIS. So the name of the bill is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021. And this is basically a bill that has been put in place to revamp the different aspects of the economy, the U.S. economy and the U.S. infrastructure. So for example, they're looking at programs to improve on the infrastructure, so roads, bridges. They're looking at education. They're looking at employment, and most importantly, they are looking at immigration. So immigration here is what we want to focus on. And what does this all mean? Now, how does it fit into an infrastructure bill? Now, the Democratic side, they were the ones who decided to implement it in this bill. And there's an economic reason why they've done that. With individuals who are currently contributing to the economy, they are helping to build the economy. They're working under the table at the same time. These individuals need help, right? And if they were given legal status, there is so much more improvement that could be done to the economy. And so that is the justification for including this bill, this provision, this immigration provision in this bill. And that is why, even though it passed, it went through the Senate, and now it's about to go through to the House. But why it has stopped at the Senate parliamentarian. This individual is there to review the provision of the bill and determine whether it fits within this fiscal bill, right? Because this bill has to do with the economy, with the budget, with technical aspects of the economic system. And so the parliamentarian has to really see where this immigration provision is in some way related to these fiscal affairs of the country. And I mean, there's a good argument to be made here, because individuals are undocumented, yet they are contributing to the economy. Can you imagine if they gained legal status, how much more they could contribute to the economy, help to build the economy, help to build the infrastructure. There are going to be more jobs, and if, with the legal ability to work, they can also fill those jobs that are needed to improve on the bridges, to improve on the roads. So that is the reason that this immigration provision has been included in this bill. Now, who could qualify for relief? Who could qualify for status in the United States? Let me just see if anybody here has any questions. Now, keep in mind, hi there, Daniela Hendricks. Now, keep in mind that I am here to answer your questions. I'm giving you a little bit of information tonight about this bill that has the immigration provision. I have been keeping a close eye on it. I have been cautiously optimistic just because we have been down this road before. But I am seeing where they are aggressively trying to make strides towards getting this passed. Now, it will be passed, if it's going to be passed, it's going to be passed along party lines, because already there is no bipartisanship. The Republican side has not voted. So, for example, the Judiciary Committee was in charge of putting the language of the provisions together, and the Republican side had suggested many amendments to the provisions, and it was the Democrats that voted it down. So they voted 25-19 on what the current language in the provision is, and so that X'd out the Republican side. But that's the whole point of why this is being. This is the whole point of why this provision is being included in the bill. It's because they want to get it passed just based on the Democratic support. And so through this bill that only requires the Democratic majority to vote and get it passed through, we could actually have immigration reform. Otherwise, it's going to require Republican support, because it's going to require more votes to be able to pass it in another scenario where an immigration reform bill is put on the floor by itself. So that is the reason why it has been presented in this way. But keep in mind that if you ask the senators, the Congress members, they are saying that this is not about immigration. This is not about immigrants. This is about the economy. And they are right. Because when we have millions of people suffering in the United States, working under the table, they are benefiting the economy, but they're not able to fully take advantage of the rights of workers here in the US. That hurts the economy. That's bad for the country. And so that is why it is significant in this bill that has everything to do with improving the economy, improving the infrastructure of the country. Now, who can qualify? Who are the immigrants who will qualify for this if it's pushed through and it's approved? So the individuals right now who are going to qualify are essential workers. Now, the number one question I'm getting right now are, who are the essential workers? Is it going to be a hotel worker? Is it going to be a janitor? Is it going to be a housekeeper? Is it going to be a mechanic? At this time, there are no specific definitions in place. The definition of essential workers, it has been very broad through the pandemic, and so that may carry through into the legislation. Individuals who had to put their necks out on the line, who still do put their necks out on the line to support to still support industries throughout the pandemic, can very well be considered on a broad basis essential workers. But we'll have to wait and see when we get to see definitions and specific language in the bill and the provision, then I can get more specific about who may qualify as an essential worker to get permanent residence through this provision if it is passed. Now, keep in mind, it's not law yet. We are still it's still going through the process, and as with the legislative process, it's what we see now may not be the end result. So we'll have to wait and see. But I thought this was a good time to give you an update. Now, also TPS holders. TPS holders are individuals who their countries, they're citizens of countries that have been designated TPS countries. And so those are like Haiti, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Sudan. So these are examples of Nepal. So these are examples of TPS countries, and citizens here get to get protection from deportation if they're a citizen of that country. The reason they have designated these specific countries is because right now conditions are very terrible. It's so terrible that it makes living conditions unbearable. For example, in Haiti, they've now had an earthquake which has made things even worse. So many individuals have been here. Some individuals have been here for decades. They've built families, they've built businesses, they've built their whole life here. But yet they still live on TPS. And TPS is not a permanent solution. It does not grant permanent residence, and it does not lead to a direct path to permanent residence. And so this provision in the bill will allow TPS holders to be able to go on to get permanent residence and eventually a path to U.S. citizenship. And also dreamers. So dreamers, and those are children who came here. So they came here as minors, under 18. And so they may expand the definition of dreamers, because keep in mind, those who, DACA is on hold right now, but those who qualified for DACA had to be here since 2007. So if you couldn't show that you were here since 2007, you didn't qualify for DACA. So hopefully they're going to expand the definition of dreamers and then allow those individuals to go on and apply for permanent residence, because I've met so many individuals who they came here as children, but they don't qualify for protection. Now, what will the process look like? So we've gotten a little preview about what the process will look like if it's approved. And right now they're looking at, so the individual who's applying, as long as they qualify for this, could pay $1,500 in addition to the application fees, and then pass a background check. And then in addition to that, show presence requirements, so certain presence requirements. So when you hear that, it means that you have to show that you've been here since a certain date, and so we don't know what that date is going to be just yet. However, it appears as if there are going to be certain presence requirements in this provision. So it is actually still a broad provision that will provide relief to millions. They have estimated that 8 million undocumented immigrants could seek relief under this. For example, there are so many undocumented individuals who worked as essential workers, and so that would open the doors for them. So let's keep an eye on this. Let's see where this goes. I have been watching it quietly, and I just wanted to give you a little tidbit information based on what I know. And we first have to see what will happen. Right now, what will happen with the Senate parliamentarian? Will she go ahead and approve it to move forward? Because even though it wasn't an immigration related bill, there was a previous situation where they tried to push through a wage increase, so minimum wage, and she did shut that down. So we have to see whether the parliamentarian will approve this to move forward. And I really hope so. So I'm gonna keep an eye on it, and you will definitely hear me screaming from the mountaintops if something should work out, or something should be approved. You'll definitely hear from me. Okay, so let me go on to some questions. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. What if the person is a farm worker, wants up now for 4th year? How can that person get permanent resident in the US and become a green card holder? So Daniela, that's what we are keeping an eye on. Farm workers could very well fall under essential workers. As a matter of fact, during the pandemic, that was a very important role. Without them, individuals would not have been able to obtain essentials. And so farm workers could fall under essential workers, but we'll have to see. Right now, there's no direct path for a farm worker to be able to obtain permanent residence, and it doesn't really matter that they've been here for 4 years, unfortunately, right now, as the law is. However, as soon as something happens, I will let you know. But if any farm worker is going to get the ability to get permanent residence, it's going to be through this or any future immigration reform or immigration bill that's going to be put forth. But I'm hoping that this does pass because it's very exciting. I mean, so many people would get relief. You're welcome, Daniela. So any more questions? That's it for me. I know it was a short, I gave you a little blip of what's going on with the bill, and that's basically all the information we have. Oh, there's one more thing. So for those of you who are outside of the country, and remember I talk about the lengthy processes, immigration processes, when it comes on to siblings filing for siblings, green card holders filing for their adult son or daughter 21 and up and unmarried, or U.S. citizens filing for their son or daughter, whether married or not. Well, what they are trying to do in this bill is to recapture some of the unused immigrant visa numbers. So if you've seen if you've been following me, you've heard me talk about the immigrant visa number. So if you remember, in order to qualify for a permanent residence, if you are not the immediate relative of a U.S. citizen, that means you're not the spouse of a U.S. citizen, you're not the son or daughter of a U.S. citizen who is under 21 and unmarried, and you're not the parent of a U.S. citizen who is 21 and up. So if you are not those individuals, you are gonna fall into another family category. And in those categories, before you can even start to be processed for the interview, you have to be assigned or there has to be an immigrant visa number available for you. And so what is happening is that the immigration service, they're getting so many applications that it outnumbers the immigrant visa numbers that are available. And so this has created a wait list that is decades long for some categories. And so they want to go back and try to use immigrant visa numbers that weren't used in 1 year. So something happened and it turns out they didn't use that immigrant visa number, that they can turn around and use it for future immigrants, so to speed up the process. So say the next year they could allocate more immigrant visa numbers the next year instead of just keeping within the cap that they have per year. So that is one of the things they're trying to authorize through this bill. And so it's not just for undocumented immigrants in the US, it's also for immigrants especially under the family categories that are waiting for a long time. They're trying to find a way to speed up the process for them so that they can come to the United States faster. And so there is a benefit for not only immigrants in the United States, but also immigrants who are waiting through the family immigration process. to be able to come as soon as to be able to come based on those new available immigrant visa numbers. So let's see. Okay, so what let me see, I answered that already. And how long for to take to immigration to make a decision after an interview have been done under review? So Virgo babe, you know that they once they say they have to make a decision, it could take months. So you could be looking at 3 months to even a year to get a decision. So I have seen it go as long as a year. I've seen it go as long as a year and a half. So it really depends on what they're looking into. What are they? Sometimes they do further investigation. And so it depends on what happened in your interview and what else are they looking into. So if anybody here need legal advice, number one recommendation is always seek that advice before you start the process. That can help to avoid situations like this, because sometimes you do it yourself and you don't put a good application together. And because of that, when you do go into the interview, the officer is already going in with a level of skepticism about if this is marriage based, specifically marriage based. They go into that interview with a bit of skepticism because maybe you didn't prepare the application process properly. Maybe you got information wrong and it seems inconsistent to the officer. Maybe there's not enough evidence attached. And so it puts you at a disadvantage. So my number one tip of the day here is get legal advice first. Make sure you qualify for the benefits you're applying